setting C classroom for emotional disabilities, emotional disorders for students with that diagnosis. Currently, we have 4 students in that classroom. We'll be adding a 5th student next Monday. So that classroom will continue to grow. We have had some specialized programming in the past with an ALP program and an autism classroom as well at Phoenix that were moved a couple of years ago. So we're back in that specialized programming, and then we also have 3 early childhood special education classrooms in our building that serve our 3- and 4-year-olds in that specialized program as well. Next, you'll see a picture. That is our staff and all of the houses after we did our house selection ceremony. So we started out with grades 3, 4, and 5, and you'll learn a little bit more about that phasing in program later on in your presentation today. But I just wanted to point out that fun staff picture there. The next slide, we're going to go into some of our format and structure, and as I stated before, with collaboration from Amy Barch and her department, and also I want to just give a big thank you to Jessica Sporbert. She is our MTSS district coordinator. You've had her in front of you in the past. She just brings a wealth of knowledge and just some really nice expertise with data. I know Jana Makovsky, our instructional coach, just really values that collaboration that we get from Jessica Sporbert and Amy Barch and her department, and the support that they bring to everything we're doing with our academic achievement results and all of our testing and everything we do with academic related work in English language arts and in math, along with the interventions that we use. This next slide covers the goals. So as you can see, we started out with 38% proficient with a goal of getting to the 50% level. I know that you've been involved in this great work with the Be Legendary and some of the goal setting that we've all been involved with, even at the school board level. So you're starting to become very knowledgeable of where our percentages are and where our goals fall with all of our academic performance. Next, you'll see some of our North Dakota State assessment results. Now, this is pretty fresh off the press, pretty new result information. As you know, our 3rd and 4th graders, or 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders take the North Dakota State assessment. So you can kind of take a peek at some of our wonderful results. One of the things we want to celebrate is overall, many schools in the district decreased on this assessment from 6 to 8%, and Phoenix did not decrease. We actually increased for our state testing. So we're super proud of that. We're also proud of all the supports that we have in place to hopefully get to that level of achievement. The next slides you'll see are broken down by some categories that we think are obviously very important. You'll see the race and ethnicity category. Just a reminder too that this is pretty raw data and we're still kind of analyzing the data in all these areas. Then you'll take a look at our socioeconomic status. Right recently, I just received an email that our percentages for Phoenix, we are at 56% free and reduced. So our Title I status is about 56%. So if you're wondering how many percentage of students qualify for the free and reduced lunch category, that would be at 56. And of course, because we're a Title I school-wide school, all of our children can benefit from our Title I funding. And we'll get into a little bit of our Title I funding and how we use some of our dollars in the next couple of slides. Next one singles out or focuses on special education population. As you know, with a very high percentage of specialized programming, the special education population, we've seen some really nice significant increases. As you can see on that slide specifically, if you look at the green, the IEP students with disabilities compared to from 2022 to 2023, if you look at that percentage up to 23 and 24 school year, we went from 18% all the way up to 28%. We had a 10% increase in 1 year in just our special education students. So we were pretty proud of that, and we've done some different things with our special education model. This year we are attempting a model that one of our general strategists serves our literacy students, one of our general strategists serves our math students, and one of our general strategists is serving more of the emotional or behavioral students with kind of a setting B in mind. And that model allows all three of those general strategists to share all of their children. So instead of them just focusing on their caseload of kids, they're sharing all of the students and they're really specializing in those areas. And so Angie Mersil, being a former classroom teacher, she's in her second or third year, I believe, as a special education teacher, and she brings to that position a wealth of knowledge in the area of literacy, and that's why she's focusing on literacy. And then we have Marissa Geis focusing on math, and we have Amber Rasmussen focusing on the emotional or the behavioral supports. So we're trying that just to see if we can even increase those scores even a little bit higher and see what we'll do with our academic achievement results. The next slide you'll see is our inputs. And so I'm just going to read through these with you. One of the acronyms, TSI, I would also say TSGI, so Targeted Small Group Instruction. If you're not familiar with that, it's just something that we're doing a lot of as we identify students that need interventions. We're providing those small groups and we're having those teachers with the highest quality certifications working with those small groups. So I'll just list those out for you. Wit and wisdom and benchmark instruction with fidelity. I know you know the financial support that we've put into our curriculum adoptions. That's very important. TSI, time with our interventionists and strategist support. Those are the interventionists and the general strategists for special education working together. Intervening day one with kindergarten students, because we know the kindergarten students need intervention right away. Our special education push-in model. Data-driven student groupings using our early release PLC and our data dig meetings. A lot of that time is led by Jana and her role as an instructional coach. Bi-weekly support meetings with our instructional coach and our MTSS team. Our coaching cycles, one thing that's unique about Phoenix and MTSS, I will say that we have a section of time weekly that we dedicate a morning, and we have coverage for our teachers. We have a rotating schedule that every teacher is able to attend the MTSS meeting for half an hour, and we have all of the people at the table that need to be there. So a special education representative, our instructional coach, Carla or Tiana as a social worker or a behavioral interventionist can pop into those meetings if necessary, and that just provides the teachers with that on-time option to look at what interventions their students need and then what interventions can we implement right away. And so there isn't any waiting and there isn't any requirement to meet after school either. They can do that during the school day, which our people really enjoy. Instructional rounds, the Ron Clark system and implementation and house app, progress monitoring schedule, and then the collaborative scheduling and goal setting. We also have a full-time literacy specialist, and she is primarily working on all of those literacy interventions, and starting with K1 and 2, and we're now working also with 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, just providing all kinds of interventions for students that need it. If you look at the next slide, you'll see this is our STAR Early Literacy results, the comparative from kindergarten and 1st grade. This is our English Language Arts adaptive, our computer adaptive test, our STAR. So you'll see this is broken down with all students, Hispanic, Native American, Alaska Native, white, economically disadvantaged, and special education. One thing I wanted to point out on this slide, obviously we're always looking for ways we can improve as well. So if you look at our Native American population, you'd probably be talking those percentages. If you look at that reduction, you're probably talking 1 student, because it would be about 10 students or so is what we're talking about for that subgroup. But comparatively, when you look at the economically disadvantaged slide and you think of 55% of our students, when you go from 36% to 58%, I'm pretty darn proud leader with those numbers when you look at the 24-25 comparative data to 25-26. And then the same thing with some of the other categories with a nice percentage increase, special education increasing by 5%. I think another thing I want to mention, and I'll bring this back again, I'll loop back to this as well, but another thing I want to mention on that slide that I had in my notes is that I had our buy-up money from our Title I. So before we get into the math results, I think a lot of our success is because we have a full-time counselor and a full-time social worker as well. And so we use our Title I funds. I see Dr. Hodek giving me a nice grin and a kind of an agreement and an affirmation that she's been in a lot of schools and she's worked with a lot of administrative leaders around the state, and they will tell you Having a full-time social worker and counselor allows us to take care of those basic needs and the family needs, and then we can get to the learning and the academic achievement. And so we've used our Title I funds to buy up those salaries for Linda Katka, our counselor, Tiana Edevold, our social worker, and then Carla McDonald, our behavioral interventionist, is fully funded out of our Title I budget. All right, getting into math. So same things, our goals, our outcomes, our inputs, and our outcomes. So our percentage started at 30%. We realize that's quite a bit lower than our literacy. You'll notice our goal was, the gap between the goal setting was significantly different. So we went from 30 to 49% just because we felt like we had more room to grow. Our numbers started lower, so we might as well still set the bar pretty high. So we're at 49% for our goal there. Also, I wanted to mention that, as you know, math has not been maybe the first priority in our district, and right now we're doing math pilot for upcoming curriculum adoption. As you know, our focus has been on English language arts and literacy and science of reading and wit and wisdom implementation. And so now I really focus, being a former coach, you sometimes get really good at the things you focus on in practice. And so I believe we've really improved our literacy scores, and I think our math scores will continue to improve with further curriculum adoptions and implementation of what we will do for enhancing math instruction and interventions. We do have, with the math supports, we do have a part-time interventionist. So Becky Mitzel is a social studies teacher at Phoenix, but she also provides some math supports. I would say it doesn't qualify technically as a research-based intervention because she's not available to do it 4 times a week, but we still say she provides a lot of math support with her position. So that's a wonderful thing that we have at Phoenix. You'll see the next slide, it talks about our outcomes and broken down by year. Gives you some really nice data longitudinally from 2021 to 2022 all the way up to 24 and 25. The next slide is the same as the English language arts format. It breaks it out by race and ethnicity. You do see from overall our 29% to 41%. We're pretty proud of that increase. That is the overall. One thing to point out about this slide that we were confused on as a group at the beginning is the left side is our school overall data. The right side is broken down by the ethnicity and the race. So the left side and each of these, the percentages are school-wide. And then the right side is broken down by that category. So if you see the next one, the same percentages exist on the left side, different on the right. The next slide is our socioeconomic improvement. And then this is one that I will point out to you as well, where the students with disabilities, the percentage didn't even record on that graph because it was quite low in 22 and 23 versus what we had for a result as 21.88% in 23 and 24 in our special education students. Next slide is our inputs. I think I skipped by one more there. Go back to, there we go. Oh no, I did that one, sorry. Our inputs. So I'll read through these again with you as we did on the previous slide. Targeted small group instruction after core instruction provided, modeling of math fact fluency, our push-in model for special education. Data-driven student groupings, similar to what we said before with our early release PLC model and our data digs. I know one thing we talk often about is how do we communicate with our parents about what is that PLC time used for, because they don't often know what we're doing in that PLC time. This is a very important time that our staff really values. Assessments to drive interventions, regular progress monitoring, our math pilot teachers, and then collaborative scheduling and goal setting. Our next slides are the math star results. Bless you. From 24 to 25, same as the last slide, we looked at this looking at our groups, our subgroups, and seeing where we can improve and then where we can celebrate. And it was very similar to ELA. If you look at some of the subgrouping and some of the celebrations that we had, including the economically disadvantaged celebration students and then our Native American students where we can increase. All right, so I'm going to call Carla McDonald up, and she's going to talk a little bit about her position and the behavior data that we're sharing with you.
All right, I'm Carla McDonald.
You got to stay right there at the mic. There you go, sorry.
All right.
Every teacher wants to move around and get involved with you, right?
Yeah. I'm Carla McDonald, and I'm the behavior interventionist. This is my 3rd year in this position. I was 1st grade teacher and 3rd grade teacher. This is my 22nd year, I believe. Some supports that I am able to provide with my position. The first one is to support the students in the classroom. I will go in and support them with staying on task. If they need social skills, if they need small group instruction, I will support them. And the teachers, I support them. They will either text me. We have a responder thread if they need assistance with the student. I will go in and assess the situation. If I can go in and sit with the student and keep them in the classroom, of course, that's best. So I will sit with them. If they need to be removed, if they're disruptive, they'll come with me. They'll go back to my classroom, and I'll help get them regulated with whatever they need. And some other things that I do, of course, like Mr. Onstead said, I sit on the MTSS team, PBIS team, and help out with our Ron Clark House system. And if you can look at our data, the Power School log entries, the 23rd, the 24th school year, that's my that'd be my 1st year in this position. And then 24, 25, my 2nd year. And in the 1st year, we had 170 log entries and then 189. When I first looked at this data, I was hoping the data would be down, right? With my position, I thought there should be less log entries. But then when I started thinking about it, I was able to assess or help the teachers utilize my position more. So I created a flow chart with some help from the other behavior interventionists or deans of students, which they gave me some advice on how to formulate this flow chart. And so the teachers were able to utilize that, and it was, using a fix-it plan, and then we would talk about if they needed a purple sheet. So a purple sheet is what we use for our log entries, and it's a way to document so we can keep track of the incidents. So I can see where they're occurring at in the school, which grade levels, and which students are acquiring most of those log entries. And then I can fill in my support by looking at that data. So I feel like there's more log entries because I'm able to help out with those and encourage the teachers to use them more, so we have that for documentation. And the pie chart is useful for me to see where most of our log entries are happening, more of the incidents. So 3rd grade, as you can see, has the greatest amount of log entries. And if I would look back into the 23rd, 24 year school year, those would be 2nd grade, and that was where I spent most of my time in my 1st year in this position. So the 3rd grade is where I'm able to offer most of the support. A lot of push-in help and a lot of different social skill groups based on our SEL data from Panorama, and just from seeing the different support that they need. And I provide using Second Step, behavioral academies, and just different resources through the Panorama skills that they need.
Can I add one comment on that? So just one comment to add to that for that grade level. We also pour most of our resources into that grade level that we have available. So we have several students that have 504 services and several students that have special education services in that class as well.
And then I'll go to the next slide.
There you
go. So there's the triangle, the PBIS triangle. Tier 1 is where it'd be the universal support for all students, where they're getting their lessons from the counselor, they're getting the classroom meetings, all the Phoenix Pride, all those different, like our monthly Word of the Month, they're having all the same lessons. And then Tier 2 would be our 10 to 20% of the students. And when I look at the percentage, I take from our school, the number of students, and in Tier 1, that would be about 2 log entries, and Tier 2 would be from 3 to 5 log entries, and Tier 3 is 6 or more. And you can see on the side in the graph, 88% of our students have 2 or less log entries, which I think is pretty great. 11 log entries in the yellow, and then in Tier 3 we had 16. And that number seems like a lot when you think of 16 students that are getting 6 or more, and there's a lot of different factors that play into that. But overall, I am pretty happy with our 88% of students with 2 or less log entries. So that's just a little bit about my role and how I can support the students and staff. I don't know if I also mentioned, like, with the, I think I mentioned my role, staff. Yeah, I think so. So
Great, thank
that's all I have.
I'll call you back up if I have any questions
Okay,
for you.
super.
I'll call up anybody else, and I'll call up our team at the end if you have questions for them, they can help us answer those. One thing I wanted to mention about that 88% is sometimes we get focused on the 16 students that are 6+, and we get really frustrated with that student behavior and how it's impacting all of the students. And it's just a nice reminder when you see that 88% of your students are doing exactly what you want them to do most of the time. The next slide we have for you is some school climate data. Just a sidebar note on that picture on the upper right, that was Jenna Makovsky's idea to put in the bald cap pictures. We were doing a celebration for, I don't know if it was Principal Month or it was Principal something, and they all came in Steelers jerseys and bald caps, so I think that's pretty appropriate for their leader. And I am a happy Steelers fan today too, by the way, so it's been a nice little run to start the year, just to add that in there. But one of the things we want to talk about with school climate is if you look at those numbers, from starting at 68% all the way up to 94% overall data with school climate, I think it really talks about the leadership that a group like this brings. When we start a new initiative and we send people to the Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta, Georgia to study an initiative and we try it, and that initiative is led by our teacher leaders rather than somebody else leading, it speaks to the people that we have and the empowerment that they have to trust each other and work together collaboratively to achieve some results. And so we're really proud of that school climate data. That just shows a few pictures as well of our staff having some fun with different things that we've had. You'll see on the bottom left, Mr. O'Connor and I lost a Vikings bet, and we had to the students, and we had to dress in Vikings things for a day, so that was painful. And there you go. Thanks for the skull, whoever that was. Next we have for our behavioral interventionist and some of the things we have for SEL and PBIS, our behavioral interventionist, our full-time social worker and counselor, these are some of those additional inputs. Our SEL groups, all of our celebrations that combine both PBIS and now our house system, family involvement and family events, and then of course student motivation. Tomorrow we are having our selection for our kindergarten, first and second graders for their house selection ceremony. And I've heard so many comments in the lunchroom the last several days from kids about, what day do we get to do our house selection? When are we going to do our house selection? I'm so excited to be finding out what house I'm in. And you'll see from our staff members, when I introduced them, I should have had them tell you what house they're in, but we have representation from all 4 houses, and I'll name those for you here in a minute. Tiana, you want to come up and talk about attendance real quick? Now, I just will give you a side note that Tiana doesn't love public speaking. Nobody jumped at the opportunity to speak in front of you. That's why I'm doing most of the talking tonight, surprisingly, right? They weren't real thrilled about getting in front of a school board and all these district leaders. But thanks for being brave and stepping up here for the group.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Tiana. I'm the school social worker over at Phoenix. This is my year 5, so I'm here to talk about attendance. This first graphic came from Panorama for the last few years. I just really want you to focus on the colors. So as you can see in the past couple years, our green data or on track is significantly high. And then as you go down to the yellow, that's at risk. So probably like tier 2 where we're intervening with myself or some of our other supports within our school. And then the red is critical. And as you can see, the red and the yellow, pretty small numbers. So something that we're pretty proud of as a school. Okay. All right, so this next graphic on the top is showing the district data at 87%. That's 80, they're here 90% of the time. And then for us at Phoenix, we're just trending a little bit higher than that at 88% of our students attending 90% of the time, which is great for us. We're excited to have them there. I think it just speaks to the relationships that our staff make with our students at school. And then this next graphic below is showing our 24-25 monthly attendance percentage-wise. As a team, as we were talking about it, we were noticing that those lower numbers, they're still in the green, but what some of the factors we had talked about were like prime sickness time. Our school's a walking school, so just trying to meet our kids' needs by getting them snow gear, their parents' snow gear, things that they can come to school. We've offered batteries to get kids to school for their cars, parent cars. Kevin's gone and jumped parents' cars. So we really work as a team to try to get our kids to school. This next one is just, as a district, as you know, we're doing our Attendance Matters initiative. So at the school level, we're trying to do that with a Pumpkin Up the Attendance, which is ongoing right now. We're in week 2. So just a fun, competitive thing for classes to kind of go against each other, and whoever gets to school whoever wins first place gets a pizza party, second place is cupcakes, and I think third place is ice cream. So just like a fun thing for kids to be excited about and look forward to. And then this last graphic is our attendance process. And when we developed this, we really looked at our district attendance policy that has come into play this last year. And we really broke it down for teachers so they understood that they're really the first point of contact for attendance concerns. Our staff does a great job at reaching out to families via Seesaw or phone calls and really trying to build that connection with families so that they know we care and we are concerned when they're not at school. And then it just works its way up. Tier 2 is when I come in, and then Tier 3 we have our attendance specialist, Jen Little, who does awesome work with some of our families.
Thanks.
Beautiful. Didn't she do a great job? Nice job, Tiana. She's so happy she's off the hot seat. Next, we just have a few celebration slides to show with you or to share with you and for you to see. Some assembly, foam party. A lot of these celebrations are part of our school-wide PBIS program where we want them to earn a number of proud moments to get these celebrations and to have these rewards at the end of the year or certain times of the year. Class movie, Spirit Day, flashlight reading, some of our wit and wisdom implementations, so our learning walks with our staff, math operations, our wit and wisdom speeches, our second grade parent event, fifth grade Smarter Than a Fifth Grader parent event, the wit and wisdom for the traveling library supporting literacy, Little Red Reading Bus. These are our pictures of the staff celebrating at Data Digs, celebrating our data. A lot of times you think, okay, what can we improve? And you don't maybe celebrate the great things. And that was one of the pieces of feedback that Jana brought back to me regarding data is they wanted to celebrate more. And they also wanted to dig in and grow, but they wanted to celebrate more. So we brought some streamers and some fun things to have at the meeting for them to celebrate. And we're now at the Ron Clark House System. Very briefly, we just wanted to mention, Team Isabindi, you out there? Bindy's here. How about Team Altruismo?
Right here, ALT,
As you can see, every team has a chant and a cheer that we teach our kids. Team Amistad?
A-M-I-S-T-A-D.
Nice job, Amistad. How about Team Revere?
Blue House. Best house.
Blue House.
Best house.
Mr. O'Connor is the head of house, as I am with Team Revere, so I think that had something to do with both being Steeler fans. I'm not sure. But this was our house selection ceremony with our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. As you can see, we had the staff picture in the middle, and then we implemented something that we didn't think was maybe possible. Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta, Georgia has a double-decker slide inside their building, and when they spin and they select their kids for their houses, they have them go down the slide. So we took ours outside to our new playground, and we implemented our slide. And so every kid, when they got their house, they got to go down the slide and then run to their house and get their t-shirt and their bracelet to celebrate their house that they were in. So it just, the whole idea of the Ron Clark system is to have 4 houses, 1 family, to break down some barriers, to increase belonging, to increase student achievement, to reduce discipline referrals, reduce negative behavior toward other children, and try to get those kids to know each other better, because all the grades are mixed in the house. And so we have all grade levels working together and getting to know the students. We've figured out over the years that sometimes siblings didn't even know friends of other siblings because they never get to spend any time together. And so now all of them in our house meetings and our assemblies have time to spend together. So we're really excited about taking this initiative and running with it. I mentioned phase 1, our grades 3, 4, and 5 have been selected. Phase 2 starts tomorrow with grades K1 and 2 being selected. And then also, we're hoping to increase parent involvement at Phoenix. This house system provides lots of opportunities for parents to get involved. We also did some donations this summer to start a donation fund so that we could start funding some of the extra things that we're doing. We have a house app, and the whole idea is to give kids house points. And then we have house point competitions between the houses, and then there's a house leader at the end, and we also have student leadership. So instead of a student council, we have students that are selected as head of house. So we've taken the house system from the Ron Clark Academy and we've adapted it exactly the way they implement it in their school, because it's really an international goal of Ron Clark's, is to get this as an international initiative so that all the schools around the country and in other countries are using this as well. So with that, I would ask if you have any questions, staff, could you come on up with me in case they have specific questions for you that might be more specific to your role or more specific. And I'll remind you, we have 2 classroom teachers here. We have our school social worker, our behavioral interventionist, and then we have Jen, our instructional coach. So we would honor any questions or try to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from board members for the Phoenix team? Dr. Lund?
I was curious if you've looked into the angels in 4th grade, because when you look at your behavioral logs, they're like at 1.8%, and 5th and 3rd graders are much worse. Is there something about that anomaly, or have you looked at that at all?
Come to the mic,
So you're asking you see that the 4th and 5th grade.
The 4th grade was so low, it was almost non-existent, like they were angels.
Right.
And I was wondering,
Yeah.
what the analysis of that is all about.
I think it's just the dynamic of kids. I really don't have like a true answer for that. There wasn't, because our 4th grade teacher here, Mr. O'Connor, like he said today, he texted me and he said, who do I give this purple sheet to, because I didn't give out any last year. And now this year he has that group of kids that has struggled in 2nd grade and 3rd grade, and he's been giving out more this year. He didn't know what to do with them. So with the purple sheets, not the kids. He didn't know what to do with the purple sheets, so he didn't have to use them last year. Same, we have a 5th grade teacher right here, and
You said
it's just
the other day you didn't give any last year, right?
Right.
All of last year, I don't think you gave one, did you?
Well, no, I gave one last year.
Okay.
This year, though, feels weird because, yeah, I now have that class that was at the 1.8%, but now I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, it's October and I haven't wrote one. This is odd. Not even a fix-it plan. This feels weird, but I like it.
And so I don't have like a true answer for it. I mean, I think it's just the dynamic of kids, but I'm in the fourth grade class this year and I do see growth. Like there are some new kids that I'm working with, but those kids that, were kind of a struggle in second grade and third grade, you're seeing the growth, the maturity, the support that I'm able to give and, the other teachers are able to give, I think is helping, but yeah.
I think
Thank
the
you.
house system has a huge part to it too, because a lot of those fourth graders are walking up and.
Could I ask you just for the
Yeah.
the public viewing in, could you just use the microphone?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So those fourth grade kids that normally I wouldn't really have relationships with now, because I see them in this house system, walk by me and like BINDI, like, hey, or check in the mornings, they're like, hey, how's it going? Like, it's just bringing us, I think, together. And-
Relationships.
Yeah.
Questions from board members? Comments? Yes, Ms. Flynn?
I usually ask this question for every group that comes, but first of all, thank you for coming. It's exciting to hear from Phoenix. My first interaction with Phoenix School was when I did junior achievement in fourth grade, and the first time I went in there, Mr. Onstead knew every kid's name. They were walking down the hallway. He was high-fiving everyone, and it was just pretty cool to see like the visibility and the teachers. So certainly have seen that trickle down to today. So my question is, you've talked a lot about some resources that you have available to you. Great to have a school social worker and counselor and those resources on hand. But if you could like get anything on your wish list, we had all the money in the world. Is there something that would take your school from good to great?
That's an interesting question.
I was going that route too. We would love a full-time math interventionist that would focus entirely on math and working with our MTSS teams to provide the research-based interventions every day for the 6 weeks that it's supposed to go, and then reassess and see what we're doing with those interventions. And then I would say on top of the math interventionist, we would have a definite idea of all of those research-based interventions that are available and provide those with our interventionists that are providing it. Like our literacy specialists are providing all the same interventions. The math interventionists in all the schools should be providing all the same interventions rather than trying to find different interventions that work for those skills that we're lagging. Good one. You want another one? You have another comment? Go ahead.
To build on that, too, our literacy interventionist or specialist works with like Jana Makovsky as well with teacher support, so tier 1. And so I think building on that with the math interventionist, like providing that tier 1 support and interventions for math would be beneficial.
Other questions from board members? I have one. Maybe it's a question for you or for Mr. Bakke. I was intrigued by this house system, even though there's no Gryffindor. Is this something that we should expect or could expect to see at other elementary schools? Is there a longer-term vision or plan, maybe a bit about how that seed was planted? What does the landscape look like?
So a couple of elementary schools have tried it, but they've adapted it and modified it, is how I would say that, to meet their own needs and their own staff. We were fortunate to have enough funding last year with our Title I budget to, Carla and Tiana came to me the year before and asked if we could start doing the house system because they'd heard about it from the other schools. And I suggested if we had enough money, let's send a leadership team on-site to the conference, because Ron Clark Academy provides a conference for educators around the world to come and learn how to do the house system. And we were there for 2 full days to learn how to do the house system and implement it. So I think it really will depend a lot upon, and you can add to this, Matt, if you'd like, but federal funding. Because if that federal funding is not available, we will still be able, we hope, to continue our house system and continue, because really the biggest cost right now for the house system are the supplies and the app that we're providing every year, because it's a yearly fee for that app. And that was what we paid for that with donation money. It wasn't anything district paid. Same thing with our supplies. That's why we had to go out and get donations and do some things above and beyond, because it is not a district-funded initiative.
Thank you. Mr. Bakke, anything to add?
No, not at this point. I think he covered it pretty well. Again, primarily all of it was through title funds, and so that's how other schools have done it as well.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from board members? A heartfelt thank you for your time, for your work, for your presentation. Moving on to item 4, this is our public comment period. I don't have any public comment cards turned in. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak during this comment period? Moving on then to 5, these are recommendations for discussion. We have 3 tonight. 5A is our fall enrollment report. This would be both Mr. Bakke and Dr. Glatch.
Yeah, thank you, President Berger, members of the board. It's my honor to present to you the fall enrollment report, as you'll see in your board packet. I want to just point out a couple things on each one of them that I think is important for all of you to be aware of. So the first graph, as you'll see on your memo, is a comparison between the May 2025 to the fall of 2025. And so as you'll see on the right-hand side, you'll see the changes as it reflects elementary, middle school, and high school, and then overall as a district. So when we look at where we ended last spring in May of 2025 to where we are now in September 2025, we're sitting at an increase of 17 students in comparative data. Now, where you see a drop is when we compare the next graph, which is the fall of 2024 to the fall of 2025. And primarily, as you remember from last year, we saw a drastic increase in students last fall. We're in the opposite end of that this year. So last year, when I presented this data to you, just this time last year, we were at an increase of 220 students. And now on this graph, you'll see that we're actually 91 students less across our district. And so a swing of, just about over 300 students that we've seen the other end of. So just so you give you some comparative data, the last thing, or the last graph you'll see on there is the demographic projections, to the fall 2025 actuals. And so as you'll see on the projections, the overall district projection was to be at 7,705 students. And this year, to start off the school year, September 2025 actuals were 7,561. So that is a decrease of 144 students. That still does give us a rate of accuracy of 97.97 in comparative to last year, where we saw an increase of 212 students to the projections, which was a 97.1 accuracy projection. So again, these are going to ebb and change as the year goes on. As the school year goes, we're going to see some students added. We're going to see some students move elsewhere. We're going to see ebbs and flows throughout the school year. When we look at our enrollment data throughout the years, projection-wise, historically, we typically start high and end up decreasing as the school year goes on. However, the last couple of years, that's actually been quite the opposite. And so we'll see if that projection continues or what happens as the school year goes on. So, and I would gladly stand for any questions, or Dr. Glatch is here as well, too.
Dr. Glatch, anything to add before we open this up to board members? Okay. Questions from board members regarding the fall enrollment report? Okay. It's my understanding this is just an item for discussion. No board action is required to accept the report. These are just items for our knowledge and information. So anything final, Mr. Bakke?
No, thank you.
Yep. 5B, Head Start orientation and student outcome data. This may be Mr. Bakke and/or Ms. Tracy Johnson, who's working her way up. So perhaps you can kick this one off, please.
Yeah, again, I'm just going to hand it over to Director Johnson, who will present some data and some information relative to our Head Start program. Again, just a reminder that this is typically something we do every year around this time annually. So you will also see Director Johnson come back to us later on this year and present some additional information as well. So thank you, Director Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, President Berger and members. Sorry. Just trying to get my presentation up here. There we go. Thank you. Okay, we are in the second year of our 5-year grant. This year we were given about $3.1 million to run our program. The non-federal share that we have to come up with, we call it in-kind, $792,000. I just want to mention from last year, we were $300,000 over our in-kind. So kudos to our school district, our community partners, and our parents to really go well above that goal. Another thing I'm super excited about is we are fully enrolled. We serve 154 students who fall within the U.S. Census Bureau poverty guidelines. The last 2 years we've been under-enrolled because I've not been able to find an 11th qualified teacher. So I'm really excited that we have 11 classrooms serving 154 kiddos this year. We serve our kiddos Monday through Thursday, 8 to 3:30. We have 7 classrooms at our main site. We're connected to Lake Agassiz Elementary School. 1 classroom at Lewis and Clark. 2 classrooms at Ben Franklin, which is new this year to us. And then we're still doing the intergenerational programming at Valley Senior Living. Head Start is made up of 7 components. I listed the performance standards in here as well. We have a really big, thick book. We have to follow the federal performance standards and make policies from those. So I'm not going to go in order there, but first I'm going to talk about the education piece. That's why our kids are there, right? We are getting those 3- and 4-year-olds ready for kindergarten. And not only the kids, but we're getting those parents ready too. We're not the first teachers, those parents are. So we're really helping prepare the parents to get their kids ready for kindergarten. We have health and nutrition that I combine together. Head Start has a lot of performance standards that we need to meet within a certain amount of guidelines. We have dates that we need to meet. All of our children, we need to make sure they have physicals, hearing screens, vision screens, dental work, dental checkup, dental work completed, immunizations. And so the goal of that is to make sure that our kids are healthy to learn. We have a mental health disability component manager, and we're just really focusing on those big emotions, just that social emotional well-being. If our children aren't ready to learn with those big feelings, it's going to really be hard to be teaching them shapes, colors, numbers, things like that. Oh, boy, sorry. Hold it down. Ooh. Sorry. Okay. Disabilities. We ended our year last year with 21% of our students receiving individual education service minutes. We work very closely with the school district special education department and the early childhood special education team to make sure that we have children in their least restrictive environment serving those minutes. Parent engagement is our cornerstone of Head Start. Not only are we working with our students on those school readiness goals, but we're also working with parents on maybe some goals that they have as well. And again, really preparing those parents to help get their children ready for school because they are their first teacher. Last but not least is the program governance and management, which you are all a part of. We have really strong leadership within our school board, our policy council, and our staff. We have Sherry Hodak, who is our policy council representative, and Dave Berger, who is our school representative. So without their input, it just wouldn't be a well-oiled run machine. We have the staff who run those day-to-day operations. We have policy council, which I describe kind of as an amped up PTO. They are helping us with in-kind. An example, our parents were doing in-kind, but the forms that we had were a little tedious. And the policy council got together last year, and they developed a form that was much easier to gather the data, and then even established a QR code to be able to go online. So without the input from, of course, our staff, but the parents and the representatives that we have through school board, we just wouldn't be as great of a program as we are. And I'm a little biased, but so those are really the three. Oh, I'm sorry. Now I'm forgetting to do this. I'm sorry, let me go back. The other areas, the other components within Head Start I mentioned, the 7 are really the cornerstone. And then these are the other ones that I'm responsible for. And here's the shared governance. I think that why the shared governance matters as well is because it gives us oversight. It gives the parents the input to make sure that we're hearing the concerns from parents and the community, and we're doing what our parents need us to do for their students and their families. We have school readiness goals that we have developed. They are aligned with the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework and the North Dakota Early Learning Standards. We have approaches to learning, social emotional, language and literacy, math, and then fine and gross motor. And then under each goal, we have objectives that we would like our students to meet by the time they go to kindergarten. If our students are enrolled in Head Start at the age of 3, they are automatically eligible to be served that 4th year as well. So in a little bit, when I go through the student outcomes, which we divide into the 3-year-old data and the 4-year-old data, with the 4-year-olds, I don't have that divvied out into 2nd year versus 1st year 4-year-olds. We do collect data 3 times a year, and I'm really proud of this data. Our teachers are rock stars, our parents are rock stars, because not only are our teachers working on all of these skills in the classroom, but we're working really hard to help our parents work on these at home with their kiddos too. So we have some really nice gains that you see here with the 3-year-olds as well as the 4-year-olds. And so these are students who have met or exceeded the school readiness goals. Attendance. So we took some data last year. I know Kevin was talking about attendance. Attendance matters. It's important we really lay that foundation about that routine, the structure, the stability. And we have data here that shows when we have kids in school, they're learning. It's hard when their attendance is at 85% or below to get them to meet those school readiness goals. Last year, our attendance rate fell at 86.87%. We work really hard with parents on relieving those barriers that are preventing children from getting to school. We also have performance standards that state if we haven't heard from a family within an hour, we have to call. If we haven't heard from them within a day, we need to be reaching out to emergency contacts, or we're doing home visits. So I really pride our staff too on really working hard on attendance and getting our kiddos to school. In 24-25, it was at 86.87%, and then the 23-24 school year was at 88.73. Last year, we really struggled a lot in December and January with parents' vehicles not starting, so that we took a huge hit with attendance those particular months. But something that we're continuing to work on. And that is what I have. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from board members? I have a comment and a question. I was able to be at the open house, and it's such a wonderful environment. There's lots of excitement and energy. I was so very, very impressed. My question is, and you mentioned having an 11th certified teacher going, serving 154 students. Is there still an unmet need? I mean, what does that look like for community members to hear? Mm-hmm. Yes, we're able to serve this many 3- and 4-year-olds. What would a stretch goal be for this program? Or, and this may be just coming out of my naivete, is this what we have the funding for? So could you just walk through, is there a wait list? Is there a process? What are the guidelines? Are we talking X number of additional students who could be served?
Yes, we do have a healthy wait list of students that fall within the poverty guidelines, and we have a healthy wait list of students who will never get into our program because they do not meet the poverty guidelines. A very healthy wait list of students way above that poverty guideline level. I think a goal, as you saw, we are in a lot of different buildings, and sometimes that can feel just you're a little divided. Maybe you're not listening to Kevin's presentation, they're all under one roof, and all that teamwork. Sometimes I think we have to work really hard at feeling that, just because we're in lots of buildings. Right now, because we couldn't find an extra room in the school district, we are in a small room at Head Start. It was our kind of little gross motor room. And because of Head Start performance standards and usable square footage per student, we can only have 10 kids in that classroom. So space, I think, I think a stretch goal for our community would be Head Start, early childhood, special ed, and a pre-K in one building under one roof.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, Dr. Glatch.
I recognize this coming out of the mouth of the secondary associate superintendent, but the data that Tracy displayed is really a compelling tale about why early intervention matters, and the earlier the better. All those kids' trajectories for learning have been changed by being part of this program, and so when we talk about swimming upstream, this is the quintessential example of that. So kudos to you and your team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bakke?
Yeah, thank you. I also want to echo what Dr. Glatch just said, but also from the data relative to attendance, and attendance matters. You can see from that data that the more kids are in school, the more they're going to see the learning happening within the confines of our buildings. I also want to echo what Director Johnson stated in the fact that really the challenges we face right now from a Head Start component, but also from an early childhood learning opportunities, is the physical space and the staffing is really where our challenges lie. Because I want to again echo what Director Johnson stated in this fact that we have a healthy wait list when it comes to early childhood opportunities for students within our community, that we need to start thinking about proactively, long-term, what does that mean for Grand Forks Public Schools, and how do we provide those opportunities for all students, not just the students that qualify within Head Start. And so, as we start progressing and having further conversations, how do we continue to provide those opportunities while also recognizing the challenges we have in front of us? So, thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Dr. Hodak?
Since this is just discussion, I completely agree with everything that's been said, and again, I applaud Tracy for what she is doing. I actually heard from, in the grocery store, a lady said, "Oh, you're with Head Start, and that's the greatest program. My son started it many, many years ago." But I'll segue into, I really do believe that this is a community school district issue that we should be trying to address, and especially when I think of the university, the College of Education, and preparing what we could do if we put those three entities together. We could do some staffing through the College of Education. We could do educating of the future teachers that are going to be responsible for them. We have a community that is in high need of daycare. And so if we worked it through the daycare possibilities, and because there's so much monies out there for writing those as well. And then the school district, so it'd be a university, citywide, and school district coming together, trying to find the one place to house it together. And you could see there's just immense goals and objectives that would help, because it is an absolute need that we are educating these kids younger and their parents.
Thank you. Do you want to respond to that in any way before we open this up to board members again? Do you?
I just think what Sherry said, it's 100%. She's spot on. I think that we have enough community partners that we could get around the table to really work on a systematic approach to serving more 3- and 4-year-olds and getting those kids ready for kindergarten. We do kindergarten transition meetings with all elementary schools every May, and I talk with the kindergarten teachers in the fall just to follow up to see how our former students are doing. And they've all said that they can tell those students who have been through quality programming versus those that didn't have the chance to.
Thank you. Other comments, questions from board members? Okay, again, as Dr. Hodek said, this was a discussion for us this evening, so no board action is required. But thank you for your time and your work, your report this evening. We have one more item for discussion, 5C, extracurricular pay scale update. Dr. Brenner?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. You have a memo in front of me, and I'll just go over the memo so it's very clear about what the conversation is tonight regarding extracurricular pay. So given some of the questions that have arisen regarding the newly adopted extracurricular pay scale, school board has expressed interest in receiving an update on how determinations were made in the development of this revised structure. And to be clear, this discussion tonight is not about reopening negotiations, as the teacher negotiated agreement was formally ratified by GFEA and approved by the school board. Rather, this is an opportunity to provide background and context for the process that led to the final recommendations. And you'll see that in the memo I've referenced Mike Beermeyer, District Activities Director, and GFEA Vice President, and one of the chief negotiators, Joe Drum, as the key reporters tonight in the conversation. So I would just invite both Mr. Beermeyer and Mr. Drum to the podium at this time to essentially talk about the process. And I would imagine board members will have some follow-up questions as well.
Well, good evening, everyone. So we'll begin the process we'll begin by talking about the process that was involved. And I'm not going to go way back to 2.5, 3 years ago. But we did spend some considerable time in the last, I would say, year and a half, going through the activities fee schedule. And the main goal, of the fee schedule that we had was, as we looked at it, we were able to identify early on, and the reasons why we were doing it was there were possibly some errors and some inequities that have been just left going on for years. And an easy one to understand is in sports, if we have an athletic event and the high school association says from start date to the end of the state tournament is 12 weeks, we should compensate our coach for 12 weeks. We shouldn't compensate for 13 or 14, and we shouldn't compensate them for 8, 9, or 10. So that was some of the things that we looked at. So, and again, the goal was not for any one of us to look at this and say, how can we pay our coaches more? Or how can we find ways to save the district money? The goal was to purely find where errors had been, where there are inequities, how can we right-size things, and looking for all those possibilities. So what we did first of all is we looked at the number of weeks that I talked about. And we found that there were a few that we knew. And I'll stop. I don't have any handouts for you guys, so I'm not sure if there's anything to reference with what I'm talking about. But we found some that needed to be increased based on their schedule. Reference things like student congress, middle school music production. Both of those, we found that they needed to be doubled. Student Congress was getting paid 6 weeks, and their whole season was for 12 weeks. And when you also look at the rest of the state, as we compare to the 4 big districts, that was clear and evident that we were not only underpaying, but I don't know the right words for it, but when you're only paying someone for half the time when they're working for 12 weeks, it needed to be adjusted. So there were a number of those. We also had some that were decreased. In particular, we had debate, speech, cross-country, volleyball, basketball. Those are just some of the highlights that they needed to be brought down in a number of weeks. There were others that were adjusted by 1 or 2 weeks. All in all, we had 16 different activities that were adjusted. And I think 5 of them were adjusted between 4 and 5 weeks, and 11 more were adjusted by 1 week. Then we started looking at base salaries and compared the 4 districts. We didn't adjust the factor on the base salaries for hardly any of them. There were 3 or 4, and they were in the music department, in particular middle school, where we may have changed the factor from a 0.14 to a 0.22 or a 0.18 to a 0.16. And I worked with Jeff Seablum on that, but it was a very small portion when it came to the actual base salary. And I think we need to make a big distinction on the base salary versus experience pay. But to stop there with the base salary, let's be clear that some of the base salaries changed because of weeks that needed to be right-sided, and very few of them were changed by the factor, the cofactor of what the teacher's salary is. And then we look at the experience pay. And there were some major changes, and I think this is where some of the questions come in. Experience pay before this change in Grand Forks, coaches and advisors, whoever was on an activity fee schedule, was getting $6 per week times the number of weeks of their contract times the years of experience. So we'll go simple. If you had a 10-week contract, you would get paid $6 for every week of those 10. So that's $60. And then if you had 10 years of experience, you would times that by 10 again and get $600. We did that all the way up to 15 years. When we looked at other districts and how they utilize their experience pay or how they compensate for that, of the big 5 that I specifically asked for, none of them pay on a flat dollar rate. I can also say in my 20 years of experience in doing this, I can't think of another school district that I've been involved in Minnesota or North Dakota that I knowingly understand them to do a flat dollar rate. In my opinion, it's just unheard of. Vast majority of people that I know, all of them that I know, the school districts pay on a percentage of the base pay. And the reason for this is it creates more equity. So let me paint you a picture. If you're getting paid as an activities advisor and you're working for 30 weeks, but your club only meets twice a week, you still got paid $6 per week for every week for those 30. Compare that to another club that meets 5 days a week, but only for 10 weeks. They got the same $6 per week, even though they're working 5 times a week, compared to the other club that got paid $6 a week, but they only met twice. You compound that by the length of the contract. A 10 or 12 week contract is very different than a 30 to 36 week contract. Therein lies why most schools use a percentage. I will say when we looked at it, here are the results of the school districts in North Dakota. It's a little bit, there's a wide range here. Minot pays 1% of the base for 13 years. So if you do the math, the most you can get is 13% more of the contract. Fargo pays 2% up to 10 years. 20%. Grand Forks Public Schools now pays 3% up to 10 years, so they're at 30%. 2 higher than us is Bismarck. Theirs is kind of graduated at 7%, 7%, 6, 6, 5, and in the end, they're about 32% over 5 years. They really front load their experience pay in the beginning to try and keep those coaches, keep them on board. West Fargo was the highest one. They pay 3.5% for 10 years. The most you can get with them is 35% of your base pay. So I think that's where we kind of fell in line with talking to different groups that, in theory, a 3% over 10 years sounds like a good fit. And it is a theory when you're first looking at making a change like this, because it's very difficult to nearly impossible to try and extrapolate exactly how much everybody is going to get paid when a lot of contracts and a lot of people switch positions. If you switch position even from as simple as a head middle school volleyball coach to an assistant volleyball coach, that's a difference. So I do remember the school district looking at this 3% and saying, if we applied that to last year's contract, where would we come out? Are we saving a lot? Are we spending more? And again, the goal wasn't to save or spend more. And in the end, it was pretty much a wash. In my mind, in my fated mind, I'm thinking that we were in a less than a 1% difference between more or less. And that's a pretty good guess, if you want to call it that, when they ran the numbers. Albeit, and I'll explain, there are some individuals that lost more than others, and there are some that gained more than others. And I'm just going to reiterate one more point. We have to keep the base pay separate from the experience pay. The base pay is what we look at throughout the state. We try and make sure that we're equal with people, and then our experience pay is also something that we looked at and compared to the rest of the state. All in all, there are a number of individuals and they're ones with longer contracts that have a substantial decrease in pay. And I think they'll come up with the numbers and they'll be able to tell you that. But when we look at everyone involved, it's a redistribution of the experience pay. And in my opinion, it's a more equitable way to pay our experienced coaches. At some point, when we're paying in an archaic way, I'll call it, at a flat dollar amount of $6 per week, at some point, some board has to make the decision to say, we have to switch over to a more equitable way of doing this and base it on a percentage of the base pay. That, I think, is our biggest issue that we're probably going to be talking about tonight, is how did this happen? How did some coaches lose some money that way? Keep in mind, we have a lot of coaches also that gained more. Their experience pay increased because it was 3%, not just the 6%. But also some coaches, as we right-sized, we had to add a week. We had to add 2 weeks. As I just said, we had 5 different groups that we added 4 or 5 weeks to the salary. So keep those things in mind. I don't need to go into a lot of details, but with everything I just said, is there any questions for myself?
Questions from board members for Mr. Biermeyer? There don't appear to be any at this point, so we'll continue the discussion. And
I'll hand it over to Joe here, and I'll be right over here in case we do have questions.
Sounds good.
Just
Thank
like
you.
he was for me.
Yes.
And just to kind of open very briefly, I have a prepared thing that I typed up just because I meander a lot when I talk if I don't have a script that I keep to. I'm coming at this from the perspective of a negotiator of GFEA's perspective. Factually, what Mike said was true about the process. I'm looking at it from my perspective and then bringing artifacts that I'm going to reference. The artifacts that are in front of you, I sent a digital copy via email. I was supposed to send that, as Dr. Brenner reminded me, by Thursday of last week, and I didn't know that I was going to be doing any handouts, and the more that I dug into it this weekend, the more I realized that I probably should. Visuals help. So as I reference those, if you want to flip through the pages, you're not going to offend me. I teach high school. I'm fine with that. You can also look at it online. But just to go through my statement, good evening. Tonight I've been tasked with bringing information, talking about the process of the MOU for extracurriculars. My hope is to inform all parties and the public about the process, assess the shortfalls of our methodology, and offer a solution as well as information for anyone interested. To start, it makes sense to quickly set the background. This process began nearly 3 years ago during the 2023 negotiation cycle. At that time, a need was brought forward by our members related to extracurricular pay, specifically coaching. Through conversations and fact-finding, we decided to attempt to adjust the extracurricular pay to allow coaches to be better compensated compared to our peers in the state, as we were beneath market value in several situations. Upon further discussion and fact-finding during the 2023 cycle, gaps were found in information, and it was determined that an MOU was the best solution. The goal outlines the intent of the MOU and was listed as the following. This MOU will ensure the following action items are completed before the 2025 negotiating session. Point 1, an accurate FTE, full-time equivalent count for extracurriculars will be created and confirmed for costing purposes related to proposals. Point 2, changes to the weeks worked for seasons will be aligned to current and known schedules with updates and adjustments noted for negotiations. These suggestions shall include sound reasoning. Point 3, current rates will be compared to a local level, the other large North Dakota school districts, at the discretion of the extracurricular administrative/department leadership. And then point 4, additional conversations and fact-finding will be summarized in a written format and presented in a timely manner. At the conclusion of the negotiation cycle, the Activities Office began work on their end of the MOU. I assisted with some data scaffolding, shared resources for comparisons, and shared tools early on in the process. I was involved sporadically with check-in style meetings to cover progress, offer data, and generally assist in any way that I could. Handouts A and B were the data that I was responsible for assisting with, and by no means were my own work solely. This was intended to be a collaborative process that fell in line with the intent of the MOU, prompting the Activities and Athletics Department to generate facts and solutions that could be discussed at the negotiations table. As we grew closer to negotiations opening, I stepped away from the process to ensure the data being generated was done by the Activities Department, a stipulation of the MOU. My intent was to not call into question my involvement or to be seen as negotiating under the table, and I felt that my role in ensuring the MOU was completed and that it was more than satisfied on that end. In my conversations and work during this process, I focused primarily on athletics, while activities admin team focused on activities. During my time where I was directly involved, some sample calculations were indirectly sent to me, which I've also included in handout C. With that data, I felt confident that the MOU would be accurately completed and be able to be discussed in the 2025 negotiation setting. I didn't have access to all of the contracts nor data until after the fact, but it appeared that the administration team had access to that data and had started the process of analyzing different solutions. In conversations with the data presented, it was noted by the admin team that some positions would see a little less in their pay, while many would see much more. The athletics team presented the fact finding in a summarized form, which is listed in handout D, and that was at the negotiations table. Please note that the positions that were going to be negatively impacted on starting pay were outlined in red, which did not copy well in black and white. The ones that are very, very dark were the ones that were in red. I would reference you to the one that I shared via color copy on email. At this point, I had no reason to doubt their findings, and the data was considered accurate based on what I had access to. In doing a review of the facts presented, GFEA and the board team agreed to the spirit of the proposal presented, as well as the information we were presented with. Questions about pay were specifically asked about how this would impact veteran teachers, and the same line of some would go down, but most would go up was stated. In conversations that I and others had with the athletic department throughout the process, the same assurances were made that nobody, save the individual positions in red, should see a major step back with these changes. Moving to the start of this year, once contracts were issued, the error in calculations was made clear. Once I heard of these errors, I petitioned HR department to generate a list of previous contract amounts, as well as the new amounts for coaches and activities to run a comparison. With that list and with the help of data tools and personnel from NDU, handout E was created, which has a front and back side. Using that handout as a tool, it's clear to see where the perceived error or where the error happened in this calculation. Individuals at the top end, 15 plus years of experience so far to this year, have seen a decrease in their pay anywhere from $1,000 to over $3,000 for their contract. This can be seen on the far right of the handout, as well as the total loss of over $15,000 from individuals who were told there would be no great negative impact to their salaries. During the negotiation process, we were also told this change would cost $93,600, which is noted on one of the handouts. Upon requesting facts from the business office, which I'll double check and make sure, the total cost was only estimated at about $55,000. My goal is to present the facts that I have, but also to present a solution. I understand that this is a discussion portion and no action is going to be taken, but I just wanted to present it for your consideration. Handout F presents a solution, which is by no means a full fix, but will alleviate the perceived error in the short term. The goal is to utilize Section 12 of the negotiated agreement to get the individuals who saw a significant cut back in line with what they were making in the previous year. And I'm willing to stand for any questions that you guys have about any of the handouts or anything else at this time as well.
Questions from board members for Mr. Drum? Yeah, we'll come back to you, Ms. Flynn. I'll see if there are others. Okay. Yes, Mr. Clevin.
Thank you. Will there be a proposed to change the Will there end up being a proposal to change the negotiated agreement? Like maybe not today, but is that the end goal?
Someone from leadership wish to speak to policy related to negotiations?
I can speak to that. I'll just reiterate what I put in our cover memo, my cover memo, that it's not about reopening negotiations, but to prepare for negotiations in 2027. That part wasn't in the memo.
Ms. Flynn, are you accessing some of these handouts electronically? Are you ready to go?
I can. Brandon, what's the base pay for like a year zero teacher in this current year?
Just under $50,000,
49,477. Okay.
49,477.
So I have a couple questions. First of all, thank you. I think everything that both of you said was accurate based on kind of what I recall as being across the table. I just have a couple questions. Also have had some individuals reach out to me, talking about some of their own experiences related to their salary. I have some questions that may or may not be for you or the business office, and they may or may not be able to be answered now. So if that's the case, I'm still going to ask them. But I know a couple people had mentioned that one of the impacts to, or unforeseen impacts is some people may be at the close to retirement. And so there's a 3-year sort of average of, and I may not be explaining this correctly, but there's kind of a 3-year rolling figure that they then use for the pension. And so there was some folks concerned that as they were projecting based on kind of what was previously negotiated. And so that figure might change for pension. Is that accurate how I'm kind of explaining it?
Someone want to take that particular question from Board Member Flynn? Dr. Brenner, Mr. Bombach?
I can take it. TFFR is based on your highest 3 years.
3 best
salary.
years, yeah. Sorry. No, I'm not trying to, it's Dawn Mord was in my head the whole time while she was talking.
Yeah. Highest 3 years of salary, your pension is based on that.
Okay. We knew that when we were negotiating back and forth, and there was a lot of questions kind of back and forth, but we did know that on the base salary, there would be some adjustments that would decrease, because those were really well laid out. And we knew that there would be some increases and some that would remain unchanged. When the proposal for the experience increment was kind of adjusted, we talked through that. Did GFEA send that proposal out to its members so that the members could review what was being proposed and do their own calculations based on what was proposed? Because in my question, if that were me and I saw, oh, GFEA is changing, I'm a coach, then I'm going to go and do my own figure to see if that impacts my salary based on my experience. So that's my question.
Yeah, and just to walk through that process, when those proposals came forward, that's part of my role, is to go through and double check and triple check. I ran into a little bit of a conflict on that end as well, where the MOU is pretty clear on who's supposed to do what. That was partially what guided my actions or my lack of actions or lack of jumping in a lot harder and requesting this information more quickly. After the fact was when I really started to pull the information as best as I could to look deeper on that end, on how this is going to directly impact each individual member coming to the table. Because from my perspective, from where it is that we were sitting, that was something that we were supposed to talk about at the table, or was supposed to come forward. And I'm not here to throw anybody under a bus or any kind of perception that way, but when we were discussing things that would relate to impact, that's part of what one of my calculations was trying to show. One of those evidence factors was that the work was done in the background, was the assurance that I had had, and that people that were going to be really negatively impacted were going to be discussed too. That was what was talked about at the table, and it was after the fact that I realized that that wasn't necessarily the truth, and that we needed to come to a solution, that we needed to try to rectify the problem as best as we could.
I appreciate the history. I don't feel like my question was answered. So my question is, did GFEA send the proposed changes to their membership?
All proposals get
for
posted,
their membership to look at potential impacts for themselves?
Yeah.
And did anyone come forward and say, this is going to negatively impact me based on my own calculation of what's being proposed?
The individuals who came forward in the negotiating process were individuals for weeks that they were concerned with. So it was like a robotics coach came forward and had the discussion about the amount of weeks that they were concerned with. But when proposals are at the table, we do end up posting them, talking about them, putting them out there. We didn't have anybody that reached out at that time after we did our outreach on that end of it. it. I think a lot of them were of the same mindset that I was, which was if they were going to be negatively impacted, we're going to be talked to about it. And I think that's where the core of the issue is that that communication didn't happen from our perspective.
Communication of negative impacts.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So in full transparency, I do believe that the board and GFEA both have different perspectives and different abilities to do calculations, right? So we're going to take the information and do the calculation. Prime example is when we do the calculations on salaries, we come together and say, is this accurate based on your calculations, number of employees? Is this accurate based on your, right? And there was agreements along the way based on, if I'm just using the example of salary. If I were to put myself in the perspective of GFEA, I believe, and this is just me, that it would be GFEA's responsibility to take the proposed changes, send it to their membership, and do the calculations on their own, just like we would do for salary, just like we would do for someone else. So I don't think there was a malice effort on anyone's part, and I don't think you're saying that. But to me, it seems like if I was a member of GFEA, I have an onus on myself to look at what was being proposed based on what GFEA is communicating to do my own calculations. So it's interesting to me that no one came through that process to say, you know, if we have however many positions on here, I don't know how many this is, 150 or whatever, that not one person came through and said, this calculation of experience is going to negatively impact me. Now, I understand and I feel for those individuals who are impacted by that, especially the ones that need their, best, highest or whatever. So my question for Brandon would be, knowing that there was an increase in salary and potential decrease for someone's extracurricular pay, we can see the decrease in the chart that may have negatively impacted someone, but did the increase in salary mitigate that is what I'm saying? Like, are we still seeing, overall? So if someone said I lost $200 in my extracurricular pay, but they got, let's just say, a $400 increase in their salary, are individuals losing money just based purely on their extracurricular contract? Some, all, none.
Sure.
Could there be?
I can take an attempt at the question. So to correct the number before, it's actually just over $50,000 for the top left-hand corner. So that's a BA1, $50,477. And I just did a quick 3% increase. I think the teacher negotiation was just under that, but to put it in perspective, that's $1,500 from year over year increase, just to try to attempt that. But I think Mr. Biermeyer might have a finer answer to that.
Mm-hmm. As best as I could try and pull contracts out. So a lot of those contracts that I talked about where we increased by 5 weeks or decreased by a week, it's very difficult to say, well, what would they have been paid? So I tried to pull those major ones out. So I'm down to 109 contracts. So that's not all the contracts, but I looked and said, this is my best 109 where it's Brandon, 9th grade volleyball coach last year, and he's still the 9th grade volleyball coach. The only thing that's changed is the teacher salary, and he has another year of experience. So when I looked at 109 best examples that I could come up with, we have 68 contracts that increased and 41 contracts that decreased. Some of the higher decreases are what they talked about. Some of the highest increases, the highest one that I could find was $1,600. So it doesn't compare to the 28 to 3,000. I found 28, but we're close into that range. So that is unfortunate. But when you look at all of them together as best we can, there are more people who are making more money with this compensation than there are that are losing money. I hope that answers part of the question.
Part of it, yeah.
Okay.
My other question would be, Chair Berger, would you allow, if there's any teachers in the audience that would have been impacted by this and would give their perspective? They may not have known public comment would have been appropriate for that, but I'm curious if there is any individuals who've been affected, if they either negatively or whatever. I'd like to potentially ask a couple questions.
Yeah, I would recognize members of the public with a reminder, again, that during this time, board members aren't going to engage personally, aren't going to answer questions. Comments aren't to be directed at personnel. That's per policy. I don't need to give a full accounting of our public comment period boundaries and guardrails. I'll allow that without a time limit like we normally would with the public comment. But let's stick to the comments at hand, the discussion at hand, and also please remember this is just fact finding. This is just context. And I don't know if you know of any who are here. If there are some who wish to come forward, you can just kind of make your way if you have something that's germane to the conversation.
Just a point of order, to be clear, if we have a question of the individual, can we ask them since it's on the agenda item?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
What I was trying to be clear about is that someone coming to the podium at this time, don't expect your questions to be answered, but if you want to stand for questions from board members, you may have some that come to you. So would you just state your name and then make whatever statement or share whatever information you have?
Yeah, my name is Brian Strom. I work at Schrader Middle School. I coach football, basketball, and track. So I've coached football for 22 years. So I was on the higher end. So I coached middle school football last year, and I did this exact same thing this year, the same position as an assistant coach. I had 15 years of experience was the max that we had before, and with this new negotiated agreement, it went down to 10 years. So my total contract for doing the exact same thing as last year, and it was like $120 less than what I made last year. So I essentially coached the same thing and making less money. And I'm assuming my coaching basketball in December is going to be the same thing, less money, and coaching track, I'm assuming it's going to be less thing too. I think in the long scheme of things, this would be a good plan with the experience pay, but for all those veteran coaches that have been coaching 15 years or more, we are seeing less money because of our experience, which we should be rewarded. So just the fact there, I made less money coaching this year than last year football.
Questions from board members for Mr. Strom while he's up at the podium? Do you have something, Ms. Flynn?
Did you receive or did you pay attention to the proposed changes and do any calculations during the bargaining?
I am not a member of GFEA.
Okay.
I did see some of the numbers, but myself, I saw the formula, but I can give you a formula, and should I have run the numbers? Yes, but I didn't know what our current base salary would have been to run those numbers to see what that would have been. So in hindsight, sure, it could have been on me, but it's a yes.
Sure.
I did not run the numbers, no.
And did any of your weeks, so you're saying like, okay, it's maybe 120 less. Did any of your weeks
The weeks
that
are exact
you,
same.
okay.
8-week
okay.
season, 8-week season, same thing.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Clevin, you have something for Mr. Strom?
Yeah, I want to make sure I heard this right. It was $120 less for your extracurricular contract?
Yes. My total contract was about $120 less. And then, 115, 125, somewhere in there. I don't know the exact number, but it was less.
But
just for coaching football. Just for my 8-week football contract, coaching at Schrader Middle School this year, Yes, was the exact same, it was the same weeks as last year to this year.
And so I'm trying to do a little math in my head. That does not include, that statement doesn't include the pay raise that you got in your base salary.
No, this is just my separate football contract.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions for Mr. Strong? Okay, thank you for your time. Are there others who wish to share a statement or information, or, yes, make your way up? Kind of the same format if you just state your name. And we'll
Jeremy
go from
Sabula, I coach at Trader. I'm a lot like Brian. The big thing for me is someone brought up the raises and things like that. I checked my contract from last year to this year, and I made $10 more this September than I did last September. That was my final contract, and that's with losing money off of my coaching contract. And you take that times 3. If I coach 3 sports, I'm easily looking at $400. If we do intramurals, that's going to be some more money. So us veteran people are the ones who are really getting hammered here. And you could say again, we should have looked at it, but I think we kind of trust our people to look out for our best interests too, I guess, in a way. And maybe that's naive of us, but so that's just my situation. So, there was a raise for us, but again, and I didn't change any of my insurance or anything like that. It's the same as I had last year. So my check was $10 more this year. So yeah.
questions from board members for Mr. Sabula? Yeah, Mr. Manley.
When you say that you expect people to look out for you, is that the school board or would that be your GFEA?
I think both. Yeah, I would say, says they obviously negotiate for us, but I think you guys too should be out looking for our best interests too, I think.
Other questions for Mr. Sabula? I thought I saw one other hand. Okay, thank you very much. Any others? Want to make sure we don't miss anyone. Yes, Mr. Olson.
I don't know if I need to go over to that microphone, but
I don't know how the cameras are set up, so perhaps just I don't know about our viewing public.
I think they'll get me on here.
Okay.
But I am one of the ones who is more impacted negatively. My pay is about $2,100 less than last year for doing the same amount of work, and I think in discussions like the thing that we were told via Jeff Seablum, who couldn't be here tonight, is that there was assurance that nobody would be going backwards, like to that degree. So when the talk of we trust that those facts and figures were going to be honored, then we didn't feel the need to do our own calculations, and just like others who have said, the knowing the base pay from the previous year, we would have to go back and look things up on our end too. But I think the thing that everybody didn't expect was that the most veteran and people who had been in the district the longest doing these positions didn't think they were going to be the ones who would get negatively impacted so much. So the ones who have put 20 some odd years into coaching every season and doing these positions, I think both sides, the board and GFEA, had that been made clear, no one would have. I don't think that we would have agreed to that, because that's not what the spirit of the process was all about. So that's kind of where we're looking at is these. It is the ones who have done the work the longest who have gotten the short end of the stick here, and I know that for veteran teachers, it kind of feels like what did we do all that, put in all those years of service for, if we were just going to have our pay cut as we go along here? So I think that was kind of the concern, is that we weren't, that was not the spirit and the point of the looking at the extracurricular contract. So That's why I know that we have asked to discuss this point, just to see what happened and where things didn't end up the way we thought they were going to end up.
Good questions from board members for Mr. Olson? Yes, Ms. Flynn?
I don't have any questions. Mr. Olson, I respect you immensely. I think you're a great teacher. Respectfully, though, I disagree with the assertion. At the very least, I would have expected members of GFEA and the negotiating team to run their own calculations on their salaries, given the information that they knew. Because if it would have affected anyone on that as a proposal, it would have been easy to do a calculation and to identify some of the behaviors or the numbers. I think there's a lot of numbers thrown around in negotiations, and our resource people try our best. I don't think this should be placing blame on each other. But I also think that if the board is receiving proposals and it was a result of a negotiating session, both parties should be responsible for running numbers, and something got missed, which means that it got overlooked by many people. And sometimes there's unintended consequences for how we do things and setting a new standard. I think that sometimes when we're in negotiations, the board asks questions about how has this been communicated outward? Do you have any questions? Things like that. And so I don't recall hearing that there would be no one that goes backwards, because I believe multiple times it was said that there could be people, and there would be, based on highlighted red columns that showed decreases in some areas based on weeks. I don't know that we ever had a calculation, though, on the 3%. It was rather a base pay then increment of what would be a equal standard throughout, based on comparable models. I struggle with this because while this is discussion, I appreciate you bringing forth a solution. Joe, I think whenever we have a problem, it's important to discuss solutions and how we can move forward from here. I think sometimes we face unintended consequences of some of our decisions, and sometimes we can make a solution to change it, and sometimes we can't. I'm curious, based on what I know about negotiations, it's my understanding that we can't reopen negotiations, but rather if there were any modifications that could be done on the annual anniversary. So the soonest that anything could be done, if there was a modification to go backwards or do anything, would be on the annual anniversary of the contract. I would like us to get a legal opinion from our attorney. Not saying that there's any action, but that is a piece of information that I'm missing on what we can or can't do. But it's my understanding that we can't just go back and change it. And so at the very least, it would be a year before anything is done. I do believe that it is important to retain staff, especially for extracurriculars. I do believe that it's important to have these conversations, but I think this kind of brings up something else, that not all teachers are in GFEA. And so those who may be impacted how are they receiving information? How are they giving opinions about decisions that are made? When we're negotiating, there's going to be impacts, positively or negatively. And I think that brings up a conversation for this board and that time of, what do we do in the interim? How are we communicating? Are we working together to communicate to all, whether it's not this side over here communicating and this side over here communicating to only members in GFEA? So I think the solutions could also be, how do we communicate better with each other? How do we seem less adversarial and more collaborative, which I think we've taken steps to do. But when we get to points where it feels like maybe, well, someone missed a calculation or they didn't calculate right or whatever, we're at a place now where people start bringing up, I mean, some of the emails I got said, if you really value teachers and teachers' experience, you'll, make it right. And, I don't think that's fair either. Like, it wasn't a malicious thing. We both agreed. Numbers, unintended consequences happen. I want to try to find a solution, whether that be we talk about it in 2 years and at the negotiating cycle, whether that be we figure out something else, or whether that be things remain the same and we just say, unfortunately we can't do anything, but we do value those veteran teachers, and and hopefully this will result in across the board that our extracurricular individuals are getting more pay. So those are my comments. I don't know that really solves a solution focus today. I think you had said at the beginning that it's not up for action, but it's a tricky situation that we're in.
Other comments or questions from board members? We have something going on here that's, no? Yes, Mr. Clevin?
But everybody involved in this process agrees that it was a discussion, it wasn't discussion, closed door discussions. Everybody was involved in this process, right, wrong, or whatever. Do we agree to that? So it is collaborative and open. If one were cynical or take the coin on the other side, comment about valuing long-term teachers, we might value all teachers to a degree, and the younger teachers in this case seem to be having a little bit accelerated pay scale on the extracurricular contract. One could equally look at it as valuing that as well. And I'll go back to what's been said a few times. There's so many nuances here and so many permutations that I think it'd be very hard to get everything exactly equitable without totally doing things that address every single permutation. So when you're negotiating for a broad range of people, these unfortunate outcomes happen. And I also want to point out that at the end, there's more contract amounts being paid out than there were under the previous negotiated agreement. So on the net, there's a benefit here to our extracurricular contracts. No particular comment in there about a way to go forward, but reflecting on what seems to be the reality of the situation here, as I see it at least.
Thank you. Are there others? Anything from either of you as we've seen this discussion play out that you want to add or clarify? Something that, and sometimes we have to process that and sleep on it and come back and so on, but in the moment, is there anything that else that would be helpful for us to know, information that would be helpful to make public as you've seen this discussion go so far? Mr. Drum?
Yeah, just a very quick point to that as well. Talking about something that Mr. Clevin brought up too. Looking through, I think, the handouts that were there, you can pretty clearly see what the process was. I think that's talking about the collaborative piece. That's something that I do want to put out there, and then to talk about something Mrs. Flynn brought up as well. The concept of This wasn't something that either side intentionally wanted. When this was brought up to me, the same emails you have been getting, I have been getting about 3 times as many. Everybody that is at that top end has been reaching out to me in particular, looking for a solution. By intent and by design, from what it is that we started in negotiations and the spirit of what the negotiation was, we were not looking to take money away as part of our conversation. We were looking at a realignment that would impact people in a small way, if at all, which is hard to do from a moving target. And you brought it up, and Mr. Biermeyer brought it up, when you're pulling contracts, when you're doing all of the moving work, right? You're trying to shoot at a moving target, for lack of a better term. You don't know where you're going to end up. You're not sure of all the different factors, which was what the MOU was designed to do. In the first time that we tried to address this, was to get the data to make a better assertion as to what it was. I feel that we missed. I feel that we tried to make a change that wouldn't impact people too negatively, and it ended up doing so. And I would be open to and hopeful that there would be some kind of a solution going forward as well. But not holding any malice towards the board, not holding any malice towards what had happened. This was very clearly an oversight, and I feel that if we're able to, we should do everything we can to correct it as well.
Thank you. Mr. Biermeyer, from you, Dr. Brenner?
Probably not comparing apples to apples, maybe more like apples to oranges, but during negotiations over the last couple of cycles, we've changed the years of experience factor that people could bring in from 11 to 15 to now 25. And invariably, we have people new to the district who are going to leapfrog over people who have experience in the district. And there's major heartburn over that. But the plain, simple fact is we don't go back and reopen negotiations because somebody missed it by a year or 2 years or 3 years. I'm going to defend Mr. Biermeyer. There's nobody I've worked with over the last 3 years who have worked more diligently and more detailed, focused, and oriented on top of his daily routine to try to get this right. And there certainly has been implications that, Mr. Drum, in your writings that I would characterize as misstatements that Mr. Biermeyer never said, using words that seem to imply that there would be very few people who would lose and very few people who would win. I take issue with that. I respect Mr. Biermeyer's work, and I don't think it's been characterized fairly for the amount of work and detail that he's put into it. So I just want to thank you, Mike, for your work. Thank you.
This has been a robust conversation and a good discussion. For the good of this topic, is there anything else from board members in the way of comment or clarifying question? Okay, thank you all for your input and your conversation. Thank you both for sharing the perspective and the context, the information with us this evening. As you'll note, we're now moving on to recommendations for action. Make sure I'm back on the right agenda since I flipped my page over for some additional white space. All right, so 6A, this would be our consent agenda. I would seek a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed in your packet. It's been moved by Dr. Lund, a second by Ms. Flynn. We'll take a roll call vote.
Clevin?
Yes.
Manley?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Palmesino? Berger?
Yes.
HS, 0 no, 0 absent.
I heard you say,
My correction is 9.
thank you. With 9 yes, the motion passes. 6B, Superintendent Evaluation Committee Report. Mr. Anderson, you chaired this meeting. Do you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. So the Superintendent Evaluation Committee met Monday, September 29th. As you can see outlined in the meeting minutes in the packet, the committee discussed feedback received following past evaluations. Committee also had discussion centered around the evaluation as a whole and the length of the evaluation. Overall, still feeling that the length is appropriate and aligns directly with policy and Century Code. Along with that, feedback was received prior on some other items, and one of those items being how to include superintendent guardrails. That was discussed, and you can see in the minutes that those will be provided as supporting documentation in the upcoming superintendent evaluation. Lastly, we discussed recently approved strategic plan and felt, as it is a new plan and was just recently approved early September, that we felt that it was best to remove those questions related to the strategic plan from the November evaluation, with the full intent that these questions would be reworked and then back in for the spring evaluation. So that would be my report, and I would open it for other committee members.
Yeah, as per our practice, we'll have other committee members weigh in and then board members as a whole. So Mr. Manley, anything to add from your perspective?
Just an idea on that strategic plan, removing the questions on the strategic plan. I heard some questions from members of the public about removing that, but I don't think they really realized that that was a 25 to 30 strategic plan, and it hasn't been around long enough to even really work on yet. So I support removing those questions relating to that strategic plan.
Yeah, I was going to issue the same comment related to the work just beginning. In fact, we haven't even stood up the full framework around the 25 to 30 strategic plan. We do have the 4 pillars at our workstations here, but that has not fully begun to take shape. Any questions related to this report from other board members? Seeing none, we do have a recommendation from the committee to approve the use of the same instrument as last year, except for the removal of the strategic plan questions from the last cycle of evaluation, and then the addition of the superintendent guardrails and 2025-2026 goals as reference documents. So I would entertain a motion to approve the use of the evaluation instrument with those changes. It's been moved by Mr. Clevin. Is there a second? A second by Mr. Manley. Any further discussion? We'll take a roll call vote.
Flynn? Yes. Clevin?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Palmasino? Lund?
Yes.
Manley?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. 6C, policy review, will take the same shape with this, so we'll start with Dr. Hodak and then perhaps comments from Dr. Lund and myself related to the second reading and adoption of these policies. So Dr. Hodak?
For some reason, my computer is just being annoying tonight. So I'm going to ask, well, thank you very much, Jeff. There we go. That we took the board action on September 26th, or 22nd, excuse me, to complete the first reading. So the following policies, 1 through 13, were forwarded for consideration. And so we need that second reading as amended and adoption. We have made no additional changes made to the policy since their first readings, as this committee has not met yet. We're scheduled to meet in November, so.
Very good, thank you. As you can see, there are 13 policies here for second reading and adoption. I'm open to proceeding either way if the board wishes to take these all together, or if someone wants to pull out any policy. Dr. Lund, do you have anything?
I'm just thinking policy BDD was not a unanimous vote last time, and we maybe should just pull that out, because I don't want people to have heartburn of having to vote for something they don't want to because it's bundled together.
Sure. How about we proceed that way then? So we'll take BDD separately, and then in the absence of any other comments, and I'm looking around at my board members as we look to proceed here, of the other 12, are there any others you wish to pull out and discuss separately for second reading and adoption? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lund, for that idea. Yes, Mr. Clevin?
Just point of order, do we need a motion to take action on, I'll call them numbers 2 through 13?
Yeah, so what I intend to do, just because of how they're laid out in your packet, is we'll discuss BDD separately for second reading and adoption, and then I'll seek a second separate motion for the other 12 en masse. So at this point, I would seek a motion to complete the second reading as amended and the adoption of policy BDD. It's been moved by Dr. Lund. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Dr. Hodek. Any discussion on BDD? You have these amendments as we discussed last time. As Dr. Hodek said, there have been no changes. We're on the second reading. Any discussion about policy BDD? Mr. Clevin?
No discussion, but I'll just reiterate comments made when we first heard this. I'm going to vote no, just given our financial considerations and the hard work we're going to have to do on that.
Thank you. Other comments from board members? Yes, Ms. Flynn?
This may be a silly comment, but a member can choose not to receive the payment, and currently federally in a furlough, and there's probably some federal employees that are still receiving money who are working for the people. So if we're making decisions based on our, where we're at, or comparatively to other people serving in office, that to me, that's kind of a moot point overall, just because we can choose to decline, and this impacts our budget by, a 0.000 however much percent. So.
Thank you. Any other comments? Discussion? We'll take a roll call vote.
Anderson?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Clevin?
No.
Larson?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Manley?
No.
Palmasino?
No.
Berger?
Yes.
6 yes, 3 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. I would now seek a motion to complete the second reading as amended and the adoption of policies 2 through 13 in your packet. These are ABAA, FAB, ABBDA, ABCB, ABCA, ABBF, DGGA, FBA, HBAA, HEAC, ICCB, FGCB. Please don't make me read those a second time. It's been moved by Mr. Anderson, a second by Mr. Clevin. Is there any discussion? Yes, Ms. Flynn?
Under the disposal of equipment, I know like UND has a public surplus, like where they will auction off unused items. Do we have that here for the school district, or do we actively sell like old? What's that process like?
Sure.
Mr. Bombach?
Thank you, Chairperson Berger, members of the board. We don't have anything set up like that. We just simply don't have that much that's going out periodically from time to time. We may have to, where we will go through a bid process to establish a value on it and sell it before we would ever throw anything out. But most recent example would have been ahead of the child nutrition relocation. We downsized our warehouse, and so we first looked to all the buildings. We have some inter-account codes that take place, so we basically bid it out to a lot of our internal schools before any outside vendor, and then before actually tossing anything out. We simply don't have that much that we throw out or sell.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments from board members related to any of these 12 policies for second reading and adoption? We'll take a roll call vote.
Palmasino?
Yes.
Manley?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Clevin?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. 6D, land exchange agreement between Park District and School District. Dr. Brenner?
Thank you, President Berger. You have a memo in front of you that really articulates some land exchangements, if that's a word, between the Park District and the School District, and it really falls under the umbrella of who's using the land the most, who's taking care of it most often, and is there a more reasonable way to share or to exchange some of these parcels. So the good news is Laura Cobb is the attorney for both the Park District and the School District, and we had an initial meeting, Mr. Biermeyer and myself met with George Hellier and his team just to talk about some concepts, starting really with Williamson Field, which would be the green space near Purper Arena that's used for Grand Forks Central football practice. And we use it all the time. It's Park District land. We just asked if there if there was a way that that could be given control to us in exchange for something. And the Park District came back and said, we use the land on the south side of 47th Avenue South, just east of South Middle School, for youth soccer. What's the other sport I can't think of? Lacrosse, thank you. Thank you. I knew it had a net. And they use it quite a bit, and they've had lots of community interest to use it. And we take care of that land in the summer, fall, spring. We water it. We spend about $800 to $1,000 a month, really tidying up that green space. So we looked at swapping those two parcels, but the Williamson Field was much smaller than the land east of South Middle School. So we furthered the conversations, and Laura Cobb came to a meeting, and we started talking about some other properties that might make sense. And the Park District offered and said, we already did that agreement between Valley Middle School, flip-flopping that green space near University Park. What if we gave you that control of the new green space? And that made sense to us as well, because we're going to irrigate it, we're going to water it, we're going to take care of it, and our athletic teams will be using it from Valley Middle School. And then we started looking at the acreage and how close are we? We were getting closer, but the Park District was still winning just a little bit. So they brought up the notion that there's some land around Lake Agassiz Elementary School that we've actually been using, part of the parking lot, part of a playground area. And George Hellier, Executive Director of the Park District, said, what if we just squared that off and said, that's yours now, and now we're really close. We're probably an acre off in all of this land swap. So that's kind of a mouthful in saying, these are the parcels that we would like to exchange. Nobody's benefiting financially, nobody's losing financially. And I did have a conversation with George Hellier along with Laura Cobb before our board meeting tonight, just to ask the courteous question of Mr. Hellier, would you potentially do something with the land that we're swapping? It's pretty valuable land near South Middle School. And he said, absolutely not. We just have a number of community usages for it. It sits adjacent to Park District land that's on the north side of 47th, Shields Field, and those soccer fields. It makes sense to keep those parcels together. So if nothing else, it was certainly a gentle person's agreement that there would be nothing nefarious about swapping land. And he asked me the same question, would you turn Williamson Field into something else? Would you sell it to 5 Starbucks? And the answer would be no. I don't know why I said Starbucks. They're just popping up all over the place. So that is what is being proposed to you. You do have some maps in the back. I'd be happy to stand for any questions if you do have any. And so it would be the administrative recommendation that the school board approve the land exchange agreement as presented tonight. And but if there are questions, we'll respond to those.
Questions from board members? Dr. Lund?
Not a question, just a comment. If you stick around here long enough, like Bill and I, you can swap land more than once, because the school district, the Park District used to own that land where east of South, and then we traded Shields Arena or Shields Field, and now we're trading it back to them. So if you stick around long enough like us, you'll get to see things pass through 2 or 3 times.
I'm going to piggyback on that comment. To me, when you were talking about no winners, no losers, I think it's a win-win. I think it's another example of our taxing agencies working together for the good of the whole, and in a sense, aligning with current community use and norms and such. And just to reiterate, because I don't think this went out publicly, because I know the public reads this board packet thoroughly, but there will be this continued commitment to collaboration around shared use for all of these spaces. And that shared use agreement will be updated by July 1 of 2026. So that's a part of this recommendation as well. Just wanted everyone to hear that piece. Other comments or questions from board members? Mr. Clevin?
Thank you. I did notice there was something in here about legal costs being split 50-50, but replat and land ownership transition costs are covered by the school district. Why aren't those shared?
That is correct, because we approached them. And so that was a concession that I made, yes.
And do we have an idea what that cost will be?
I don't.
Well, I can find that out. So there's that. And as far as development or not development, with profound respect to both parties, like I don't doubt anybody's going to go back on their word. But leadership's transition, people change. We should get that in writing at some point, whether it's in the shared use agreement or in some other document. That's not going to affect the way I evaluate this personally, but I do want to urge us to get that in writing.
Go ahead.
I would say that we did talk to Attorney Cobb about that, and it would be a little similar to when we sold West Elementary School to Oxford Realty. We really wanted to make sure that that land was going to be repurposed into affordable housing, and we couldn't put that stipulation in the exchange. That would be up to city planners. But I will still pursue that a second time, Mr. Clevin. Thank you.
Other questions, Ms. Flynn?
Just a point of reference, we don't have any maps in our agenda packet. I think I know which land you're talking about, but just a point of reference.
We will still get the maps out to you following this meeting.
Any other questions or comments from board members? It's been moved by Dr. Lunn to, let me just make sure I get the wording correct here, to approve the land exchange agreement as presented, and a second by Mr. Palmasino. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Clevin?
Yeah, just a point to make, more so we all hear it. We've read it, but there are no special assessments on either of the land being exchanged. So neither party's taken on an encumbrance that's present on the land.
To my knowledge, that is correct, but I will follow up as well on that one.
No, I think they were paid last time around.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, there's a motion on the floor to approve the land exchange agreement as presented. We'll take a roll call vote.
Lund,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Palmasino.
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Clevin,
Yes.
Hodak,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Manley,
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. 6E, contracted staff resignation and release from contract, Jonathan Elwine. Dr. Brenner?
Thank you, President Berger. This is a hard one. It's a hard one for two reasons. One, Jonathan has been a terrific director of buildings and grounds and has taken on so many responsibilities with close to $200 million worth of projects going on in our school district from start to finish. Not all of them have been realized yet, but he certainly has been central to making sure all of these projects have happened. He's been communicative with principals. He's been just terrific to work with. And this second part, more importantly, the difficulty of this is he's making the move, as you saw in his letter, that I just don't want to violate any HIPAA things online here, but it's to take care of his family. And I certainly respect that. And I think if it was up to Jonathan, if all things would work out, they would stay here and get the attention that his family needs. So the administrative recommendation is to grant Mr. Elwine release from his 2025-26 administrative contract effective October 24th, 2025, with a waiver of liquidated damages under policy DKBB. Thank you.
Questions from board members for Dr. Brenner? Would seek a motion. Oh, do you have one, Ms. Flynn? Your microphone is not on anymore. Mr. Clevin?
Just administratively reading the document here, the motion would waive the liquidated damages, but the paperwork doesn't necessarily have a checkbox to that effect. How do we affect that change?
It was included in your packet because we just wanted you to know that he signed the document, and then it's really up to us to make the recommendation.
Other questions from board members? Would seek a motion to grant Mr. Elwine release from his 2025-26, effective 24-25 with a waiver of liquidated damages in our policy DKBB. It's been moved by Mr. Clevin. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Larson. Any further discussion?
Just a comment,
Ms. Flynn?
a correction that it reads for the following teacher, but should just say that for the following director. Please find attached the letter of resignation effective from the following teacher.
I see, thank you. So the second paragraph of the cover memo. Thank you. Any others? Before we take this to a roll call vote, maybe this better served in announcements, but just a thank you to Mr. Elwine for his work. There's been a whole lot going on in this district that he's been a part of, and just very appreciative. We'll take a roll call vote. There's a motion on the floor.
Larson? Yes. Palmasino?
Yes.
Clevin?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Manley?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Berger?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. Under item 7A, announcements. Are there any announcements? Yes, Dr. Glatch.
Just wanted to say thank you to the board members that were able to attend today's Blue Ribbon celebration at Schrader Middle School. They are in the top 3% of all schools in the nation with that award, so that's really deserves some celebration.
Yes, thank you for that. Other announcements from those gathered here? 7B, board requests for future consideration. Yes, Ms. Flynn?
At some point, if we could hear from the Foundation for Education, doesn't have to be now, but would love to hear the work that they're doing and collaborating with the school district. And then we have some board committees that meet out, or committee appointments that meet outside of the table, for instance, LGAC. And I think we've always kind of struggled with those members and how they can officially bring back information. And I would love to consider how we could potentially have them give a report or something from those meetings.
Thank you.
And other committees that are outside the school district.
Thank you. Other board requests for future consideration? Seven C, school board meeting norms. Mr. Larson, how did we do?
Incredible.
Thank you. We're adjourned.